privileged to be a part of that particular change. So I'm here as a parent, but honestly, a lot of what I do day to day, I mean, my day to day existence, is not caring for Brian as a person only. It's actually losing the experience of exclusion. I do
Right.
workshops for siblings. I know that is not a topic for the 30 days, Christine, but the issue of siblings is something that, and I go back to the issue of mental health. I really appreciated the input on mental health, because I think that we lose sight of what it can. I was in a parent support group with a woman who had a son who had CP, and they migrated. Her daughter committed suicide. Why? Because of the feeling of being excluded. The daughter was non-disabled, the son has a disability, and the focus becomes around caring and nurturing. And you say, okay, that one is okay, he's okay, she's okay. So even that issue of mental health and the family and the need for the wholeness, I really welcome hearing from the colleague in San Francisco, I'm guessing from the bridge, because that really helps us to understand the issue of mental health on the table. Thank you.
Might I add, I'm not in San Francisco, but I'm just trying to find somewhere warm.
That's not fair. That's not fair. I
And
believe
hopefully there is warm right now, because where I'm at is very cold. But I do appreciate you say sounding the alarm. I think for many years we have struggled, and this is a struggle, I believe, for every single state, county, environment, country, to merge the, I don't want to say system, but to realize that individuals who have different types of disabilities, whether it be cognitive disability, but whatever types of disability, there is a correlation that comes with the mental health piece as well. When I chose to become a therapist, I realized that they come together at some point. If they don't come together earlier in the person's life, later on, as the individuals themselves, I'm going to start with that person. As they become older, you're going to start to see some mental health issues. Sometimes it is the behaviors are not cognitive behaviors, are not, it's not because the person um, is communicating at all times. Sometimes the behaviors are not mental health issues. And so I work alongside, I'm one of the contractors here with the state for many years. I actually, my company itself, I work with hundreds of individuals in my own company that have all types of disability. And our agency is known for one of the agency that focus on all types of disability and mental health. So when we look at who we are as individuals, mental health, when we go to the doctor to take care of our body, all of our the medical aspect, but or anything that is causing emotional impact on us, it affects how we think, it affects how we act, it affects our behaviors. It's the same thing for a person with a disability, even more so. And so we have not been taking the time to look at that and saying, are individuals with disability or family members who are taking care of their children, and then their children are turning into young adults, and their young adults are turning into older adults, they're impacted, and the siblings as well are all impacted. And so mental health professionals need to now put more focus on that. Everyone mental health needs to be focused on, as you said. And so we could be preventing issues like, a family member committing suicide, or a family member being supported so that they too can turn around and support that person with the disability. And so for me as a therapist, all of my staff are trained. They don't have to be therapists, but they're trained in our company to look at what's going on with the family, but also if there's a mental health crisis, they know how to support the person. So apart from being a therapist, I also have a company that provides support to quite a number of individuals. I also collaborate with other entities. It's an honor to be here. I'm a part of the system change. I live here in New Jersey, and years ago, New Jersey changed the way that they provide services. But once again, as one of the speakers said, that came from parents. That came from parents like you, Maureen, that pushed and never stopped pushing. And then guess what? Colleagues like myself who was at the table with the parents who believe wholeheartedly that yes, we wanted to be a part of this, even though I'm not chosen, I wasn't chosen to be a parent, but guess what? I was chosen to be a grandparent. My daughter has a daughter who's almost 3 years old, and she has cerebral palsy and what it looks to be like autism. So I wasn't chosen to be a parent, but it appears to be like the Lord has prepared me with all the experiences so that I now can support my daughter and point her in the right direction, and to be able to cushion my family with everything that He has given me for so many years. So we were at the table as providers to sit there with parents, but parents were the one that pushed and continues to push. And so
yeah. So if I can add in, thank you for that, Lorraine. And just to say, Lorraine is also going to be supporting me.
oh, absolutely.
Because I'm in New Jersey and find that I have to individualize the attention for Nathan. But I
Yes.
wanted to make the point that, that about Maureen, the siblings, and where there are husbands in the household, and extended family like grandparents, that there is an impact that I believe was overlooked.
Yes.
Because I shared in my book, and Senta, you were the one who pointed it out to me, that it was actually the first one that you actually saw that carried the family voice. Because when I did How to Cope Parenting a Child with Special Needs, there's a mother from Britain who is really struggling. She has a daughter with spina bifida, and she provides voluntary support to the work of the foundation. And when I asked her to read it as another parent, because there's a lot of input of a lot of parents, Sasha wrote something, Dr. Kian, who spoke before, wrote something, as well as the professionals. So it was not just me accounting my story or recounting my story. And she said to me, you touch a little bit when you talk about your husband. But she said to me, I have not yet seen any material that carries a husband's point of view. So I interviewed my husband. And then my publisher said to me, you touch a little on the siblings, and I want to hear more about their story. And I interviewed them. And I want to tell you, I bawled my eyes out, because all of us, knitted family, living the same experiences, same experience, I was shrouded in the what I was going through. And I'm not making it wrong. I'm just explaining that even in the moments of us caring for Nathan together, of us making decisions for him, that conversation never took place. So when Nathan was born, my eldest was 8, 6, and 4. And when I spoke to her, and she said that because I kept going in and out of the hospital, that when Nathan was born, she was so excited when Daddy called and said the baby was born, that she got her siblings together to tidy up the house, to put away their toys, so that when I come in, everything would be ready. And then Daddy came home and there was no baby. And he said the baby was sick. And she said she cried and she was so disappointed. And when, for the first time, I was understanding the impact, but the beauty of it was that we already were knitted. So they found strength in one another. But what that did for me was open up my understanding. And Nathan's pediatrician, when he read the book, said that he needs to make sure his pediatricians read it, because they now have to now look at how they're supporting the entire family and not just the mother and the child. So again, going back to the power of the story, because people don't know what they don't know until they know. And a lot of people who are shaping policies and making decisions don't know. And so it takes me and you and Sasha and other parents to shove ourselves, Jamaican language again, we've been teaching them Jamaican all week, to shove ourselves to say, listen, I need to look at that policy because you don't understand my life. So how are you going to be writing programs to support my life? And then invariably when you look at it, it doesn't exist. It also goes to connecting yourself with the resource people. Lorraine's hand is raised, but connecting yourself with the resource people so that when a document comes to me, I can say, Center, take a look at this and let me know what you think. I can say, Erin, take a look at this, because I have connected the resource people around so that whatever we put out, it is a holistic approach and a holistic conversation. I can't tell you the number of times we knocked our way into some of those cabinet meetings. So some of the stuff that you see happening now in education and the policy towards inclusion, a lot of that came from us, Center and myself, pushing our way into those meetings. And when we start talking, within minutes, they start talking to each other because we bring insight. And so we go back to the point that your story matters. So how do we craft our voice and our stories in such a way that a center says they can hear us? How do we do that?
And what I wanted was to say too, the person with a disability needs to be at the table as well.
I agree.
To be represented. And that's how we did it. As I was a part of the system change here. My students was a part of the system change here to be included. And so they were there with their parents. When you employment, yes, the person needs to be supported. But if the employers, you know, when you're going in, the person with the disability needs to be counted, need to have a voice, because we don't know, we are there, even you're there as parents and we're here as providers, we don't wear the shoes.
I have to raise my hand. I have to raise my hand.
Talk.
You know, we talk about the voice, and as I say, I think that I was given B because we consider ourselves to be the children of the lesser gods, in the sense that we're the bottom of the food chain. He has no voice. And one of the struggles I have found is that when I get up and I said, I have a disability, people look at me. I am him because I have to be him. And I think we always need to have a space for understanding that everyone doesn't get to be physically at the table, but that they can be represented because we understand. That was one point. I just want to pull on something that you just said there. But the other issue about the sibling is, and go back to the mental health, is helping the other siblings not to feel that they are care providers before their time. I use my experience again with Anarchy, who has made it clear, for example, anyone who is marrying her has to accept that Brian is hers as well. But she has defined and created her own space for those things. Yes, you could say, oh, that's awesome, that's awesome. Yeah, but I also want for her to be her own person. I was in St. Vincent for 10 months. She decided, first of all, it's COVID. Brian can't afford to get COVID. So everybody had to go home. No caregiver, no anybody. It meant she was doing her art and taking care of her brother on her own. I have never had to do that, really. I've either been here with a housekeeper or with her as well, right? So giving, again, to the mental health issue is that I hope that we create a space for her who she does not look broken. And there are siblings like that who won't look broken because they need to start, good job, really. But in effect, we have, and particularly in a country like Jamaica, where we have less resource support, we have almost crafted or defined for her, you're part of what you're going to be. You're going to be his care provider. So I'm happy that she feels the love towards him, but equally important that a system or a network that supports her being a person, first and foremost. The other thing, again, they speak about Christina, a lot of people speak about the resources and the leaning on. Interestingly for me, the support and the support that I have had, the family that I have had, because I'm a solo parent, and solo parenting is not the same as single parenting. You know that, right? Right? Correct? So if you're a solo parent, you're on your own. If you're a single parent, you may have a partner who he or she assists from time to time. I'm a solo parent. There's no other person. He disappeared, right? Is that I have found that my support actually comes from, in my case, my geographic neighbors. And so I think it's about building your network not just around people with disabilities who are parents or siblings or other people, but just people who know you and who have a love for you as well. That's my other thought about that.
Yes, that was the 5 protective factor yesterday, right, Center?
I missed everything. Okay.
Yeah. No, you have not missed everything because it's recorded on YouTube. So just subscribe to the channel and you can pull down and watch whenever you want to.
Awesome.
But I know, Center, I saw you, I'm getting ready to speak, but on the point that Maureen made about her daughter and just amazing job your daughter is doing, my eldest has taken on a very maternal role towards Nathan, to the point where there are times when she challenged me in my decision. And I have to remind her, hello, I'm the mom. But she right now has decided at 24 that she's not going to have children. And I asked why. And she said, because I became a parent too early.
There you go.
So while it wasn't a role we assigned, she took responsibility for her brother in such a way that, I mean, when she's here, oh my goodness, she just takes over. Sometimes it's difficult for you to get in. But you're correct in the observation that you made, that the siblings who appear to be okay, that support is needed. So we're looking at, because also in all cases were the grandparents, and the grandparents were disappointed when they were not seeing the development, and it created a lot of family struggles and family risk, and they want to tell me what to do, and it creates a lot of dysfunction. So the moral of the story is that we have service providers on the stream, we have organizations and NGOs and faith-based and all of that. I mean, I'm part of a faith community and my faith is strong, but my faith community was never there. And a part of that is because I didn't know how to articulate the needs I had, and they didn't know how to ask. So having these conversations break down, and then people see you, and as a Karen on the stream, Karen says that people perceive you to be strong. So when I used to make appeal and nothing came and I would cry, and she would say, because when you articulate it, you sound like you have it together. And people don't know how to enter the conversation and they don't know how to help you. So you have to learn to craft your ask. So that's why we've been telling people, buy the book, subscribe, like, because we have to teach people how to support us. And it puts a lot of responsibility on us. But guess what? We know better how we need to be supported, because I have had the support from family members that was invasive, that was a struggle, and that made my life more difficult, to the point where even when I was in need, I didn't want it because it came with too much burden. So there is a lot that needs to happen as we open up and explore our own selves and make choices about where we want to go, what we want to do, and don't take on. Some speakers spoke yesterday, they said, I think it was Erin, she said, don't take on everything. She said, that's a challenge. It'll be overwhelming. Choose something, choose one thing and work on that one thing. And then you choose one more thing. And so that's really what I want to contribute to that thought. We're having some pauses in this space. So
hello.
I don't talk too much.
I don't want you ever to make pauses wrong. Pauses are necessary.
Yes.
Pauses are holistic. Yeah, but you did. So I am stepping in for those persons.
Amen.
Those persons on the stream who need to know that a pause is not a problem. A pause is not a drop in the space. A pause is not a lack of communication. A pause is a pause. And it's okay.
And Lord, do we need pauses?
We do need pauses.
Yeah, we do. So Keisha Gardner says, I agree with what is being discussed, because they say what they want. And I guess she's talking about, Maureen, when you were talking, and there are people who don't know what we're experiencing. Lenore says, yes, a pause to the process. So she's agreeing with a pause. So Tammy says, I'm preparing myself, as well as us on the stream, to speak, and she planned to make that change. Yeah, so those are some comments.
So I want to say what I am learning, because I have I do not have a child with a disability. I don't have anybody in my family currently with a disability. So I'm standing in another space. But I am committed in this engagement ongoingly over the last, is it 13 years, Christine?
Yeah,
Working with the
something
Nathan E.
like that.
Banks Foundation. So one of the things that I am learning is what is inclusion? What really is inclusion? How can I support inclusion? What does it look like when it's occurring? Because what I'm hearing is that I need to have inclusion in my family. I need for accessibility to occur in my family. I need for sustainable practices to be occurring that are holistic and that are supporting the development of my family towards the objectives that are agreed. So how do I then, as a parent who I'm supporting parents who have children with other abilities, how do I engage in enlarging the conversation around inclusion? Senta, I want you to help me.
Yeah, I think that that's a powerful question that we all need to give pause to, even as experts and thinking that we're doing it well all the time. I want to return back to something that you said, because inclusion begins in the home. And just like you just naturally rattled off, you gave concrete examples of what takes place in a home as a parent of a child with a disability. If the child is not included in the base and in their birthplace, if you will, it makes it harder to go outside of that space and encourage, inspire, or help people understand why your child should be included if you yourself have not had a chance to do that in your own home. So that is a challenge and an invitation. That is not anything demeaning or a cut down. It's a challenge and it's an invitation. And the other thing is, when we think about inclusion, it's where children and persons with disabilities live, where they work, where they learn, and where they play. That are those are the spaces of inclusion. So when we think about places where they live, where they work, where they learn, where they play. And then we also thinking about what we call, it's a quick acronym, SPA, S-P-A. What are the supports? What does full participation look like? And what kinds of access do children and persons with disabilities have? It doesn't do any good to have a park where children can come, but yet we don't have universal design where all children can access the beauty and the great space of that park. So we really have to think about, how are we creating accessibility? How are we making sure that children are supported? What it looks like in my eyes, whenever I go, I always say, and it draws me back to when I first saw Nathan and why my eyes looked like saucers, as Christine would say. When I arrived in Nathan's preschool program, he was in the back of the classroom in a stroller, and he was away from his peers. He was
against a wall sleeping.
Against the wall, sleeping. He was in the space, but he was not of the space. And that's what needed to change. When I look at inclusion, I go into a classroom. If I can't see the child with the disability, I know inclusion is happening. That means the child is engaged. I can't find him. I have to look for him. He has accessibility. She has accessibility. They're participating. They're with their peers, even if they're laying on the floor and their peers are sitting in chairs, or all the peers are down on the floor. They're laying on their stomachs too. There's something that's happening in the environment where they're not excluded, they're of the experience. So I always look for that. I look for, in a home, when I go out and do home visits, that's me knocking on the door and parents allowing me to come into their space and sit with them and be with them and have conversations with them. I think about Dominique in Jamaica, and we're talking about a young lady who was to me, I don't know where she is right now, but in my mind's eye, I remember her as being extraordinary. Her mother was a painter, and what she wanted to do was with her daughter is that she wanted to paint with her daughter because she noticed how her daughter would smile and try to find ways in moving her body to come closer to her mother whenever she was painting. Dominique, no limbs. Is that right, Christine?
Well, she had actually gone back to fetal position.
Fetal position.
Yeah.
Yeah. So no mobility or accessibility.
Mm-hmm.
Child is in a fetal position. Her mother is a beautiful, extraordinary painter, and her daughter wanted to connect with her. So what did we do? Inclusion begins in the home. How do we include this parent? It was just those two, if I remember correctly. How do we create unity and a bond between a mother that has a passion and a beautiful gift and her daughter who's not able to speak, but could communicate? Maureen, you said it earlier, and it gave me, my daughter would say, it gave me duck bumps instead of goosebumps. It gave me duck bumps when you said your son can look at a person's soul and tell whether or not they want to be bothered. You know, that he has the ability to see the soul. And that speaks to me. And so helping the mother, we created a band around, I don't know if you remember this, Christine, we went through the process of making a headband with a paintbrush on it. So if she had very limited movement, her mother could scoot her in a position, she could stay in that fetal position and still have access. Even if she moved her head like this, the canvas was close enough, she had the opportunity to paint with her mother. So when we talk about inclusion, it's not this myopic, limited view, it's how am I being included in this moment?
You know, I think that whole inclusion, when we started the opportunity for students who are deaf to be a part of technical vocational training, I was excited. I said, okay, mission accomplished. So I asked the person who's coordinating the program to send me a photo of the classroom. I was like, could not be controlled. I saw my 3 students who are deaf over there. I said, have you all lost your freaking minds? And I stormed down to the Kingston Technical. I said, listen, it don't happen like that. 12 people in the class, those 3 belong inside the class. The sign language persons up the front, you can see, they ain't sitting by themselves over there. So I said, get into the class and you say, oh, those over there are deaf. The rest of them so and so. So it has to be, if I just thought I had accomplished it all and let it alone, I'd have ended up with those 3 students being separate just the same. And even here at home, despite Brian's limited fine motor skills, Monday morning is laundry day, you're taking your laundry basket outside, my friend. It's you finish eating, you ain't gonna. I mean, my daughter will say, "I take care of you. I don't work for you. Take your bowl into the kitchen," kind of a thing. So it's not a thing to say you're so special, you're over there, but from the very and then we have traveled as far as Vanuatu with Brian. People think it's crazy, but you have to. I mean, because he's not toilet trained, I have mastered how to go into a tiny little bathroom on a plane, flying high up in the sky, and change my son himself myself. But inclusion is not just something you talk about every single thing you're doing. So it's not something he gets to do with us, something he does not. And then how we live, people understand what inclusion really should look like. In other words, if they never saw Brian, never heard of him, then they say, oh, but you don't really include him. So why should we include people with disabilities? So we have to live inclusion, practice inclusion ourselves, both in the home and obviously when we go out. I mean, why do you have a playing field that actually we can't get on the playing field, right?
Yeah. So Keisha Gardner says the conversation around the playing field is a very big concern of hers. Her son is not able to access the play area at his school as he would really want to do that. And we know right across Jamaica that that is a big concern. We see some organizations deciding that they want to become more inclusive, but they don't get the input of the people who can help them to understand what accessibility looks like. And so they go out and do something in their understanding that is not. And so one of the things that I do, Keisha, anywhere my children, well, Nathan went to school, any event, anything that was happening, if I have to fundraise to get them there, I did that, because then they can't tell me that they didn't know. And so we go back to the whole point of awareness, because it is not something that the teacher training program covers. We heard Dr. Bukal earlier says that helping medical doctors and how to understand disabilities and deal with disabilities and the psychosocial impact and so on of disabilities is not something that medical school covers. And so in this day, which is International Day for Parents with Disabilities 2020, Maureen, I'm with you to say my son is 16 years old and I'm still waiting on the early childhood system in Jamaica to be fixed. But we continue to empower parents to ask and to demand and to request, because when enough of those begin to happen, when parents begin to understand that their voice matters and that their voice has power. I was asked to speak at a school recently to caregivers, or they call them learner assistants, because I was talking to the teacher about the day I recognized that my son is an employer. My son is an employer. Because if he never had a disability, the caregivers we employed wouldn't exist. The special ed teacher wouldn't exist. The other people who support him wouldn't exist. And I position it that way. I say, he employs you. Yep. Because if he didn't exist, your services would not be required. And so we got to recognize our power. I'm not saying going in there and rude and kick them down and disrespect. But I'm saying that we need to stand in the power of our story. And so, like, I sat in a meeting here and heard all these specialists tell me all the wonderful thing that was happening in their classrooms, and I listened, and then they were ready to come off of the call. And that was a placement meeting. And I said, hold up, I got some questions. I said, thank you for sharing. But when you were saying X, Y, Z, and you said your students speak to tell you man can't speak, so what would that service look like for him? Mm-hmm. And I went around the room like that. And in that moment, they started having a different conversation. The service was pulled up and put back together to accommodate him, his individual need. So we have to recognize that we are partners into the process. And I have fired doctors, I'm sorry to say this, because we're not on the same page. We're at odds. And I'm grateful for those doctors and medical professionals and the Lorraines and the Dr. Leiber and people like that who have made it their responsibility to see people and not abilities and disabilities. And so we have to stand in that power, and we have to say, this ain't working for my son, and we need to have a conversation about that.
Can I say something? Sometimes we speak a lot about how we focus on for our children. And I said before, I feel guilty because so much of what I do is really not so much Brian per se. But you talk a lot about inclusion, and going back to inclusion conversation as you asked Elaine, right? Mm-hmm. We do a lot of, my company that is, we do a lot of evaluation of government projects, particularly JC, for example. So about 2-3 years ago, we did something around their access to, they were placing toilets, pit latrines with toilets in rural schools. And we went in there and they had, good job. About 3 of them, by the way, Christine, had put in ramps. Now, my team is so used to talking disability. The ramps were like yay high, that if you didn't have a braking system on the wheelchair, you couldn't get up it. There were no rails, there was no nothing. And the bathroom for students with disabilities were being used by the teachers and instead. So we spent a lot of time with GC. We did a few workshops with them around designing programs that genuinely included persons with disabilities. Because us, the advocacy sometimes around your own child, but the lessons that we learn and based on what, because I mean, Lorraine is a therapist. I'm not a therapist, but I'm a development person. And what I do is I find that JC wasn't against inclusion, it's just I never thought about it. Right, I never thought about how to do it. And so rather than beating up at them, I said, okay, let's do it. In fact, I did a workshop for all of their planners around how to design in community things, how to include people with disabilities in community conversation, because the first thing people will say, they go to the community and they say, anybody with disability here? I said, listen, 15% of our community have disabilities. So therefore they are there, but because they are hidden because of the stigma, particularly inner city communities, but they are there. So our mission is to find them, to bring them to the table of the conversation in their own communities kind of a thing. So it is really inclusion. You have to almost, it has to be in your DNA. When I
A
go to church,
practice.
yeah, it's go to church. Brian comes with me, but Brian's not entirely trained. Now Brian loves the church music. Trust me, he just swings and sways to the music. He relaxes his body. He has a number two automatically every time I go to church. I have to leave and come home because the stalls were too small to change him in. I said, no, I'm not going to leave church anymore. I want to be at church. And I put in advocated for new toilets, helped to raise the money for the toilets, made sure that they're both on gender side, male and female. One was wide enough for a stall, so we can go to church. And if he has a number two, I can go and change him and come back into church, for example. So you have to almost, it's in your DNA. It's like it's
Yes.
all you think about, really. If you think about it, everything you see, if I can be very careful sometimes, it don't almost overwhelm you. You
Right.
see,
Okay.
you see exclusion, you say, well, what should I do? How do I fix it?
Yeah. So
So,
what I am
Elaine,
getting in the,
before you go,
uh-huh.
I just want to acknowledge Dr. Karen
I was about yeah.
Dunkley, but I also want to acknowledge on the stream one of my new best friend from primary school, Dr. Brown Earl from Northern Caribbean University. She heads up the Department of Psychology at that noble institution in Central Jamaica and became my best friend last year because, man, she has the same passion, fire, and advocacy, you know, that we like to see in people who are working for children. So she asked, how can, and she's asking this of you, Senta and Lorraine, how can the psychologist help with advocacy for inclusion?
So I'm going to jump in the pause and we can come back to that, Christine. I think Center may have stepped away for a minute because in listening to the conversation, what was occurring for me was that there is a large community that does not have a conversation about inclusion.
Yes.
There is a large community that has no notion of what inclusion looks like. And one of the things that is clear for me is that pie, the pie that says of that, let's say 60 degrees or 360 degrees, there is 3% of what you know. And then there is the larger piece of what you don't know. Then there is another piece of what you don't know that you don't know. And the largest piece of the pie is what you don't know that you don't know that you don't know. And I think inclusion falls in there somewhere where it occurs like a degree of occurrence. And what we are being challenged to in this summit is to ask ourselves, I'm asking that everybody now engage, begin to say, how am I practicing inclusion? First of all, in my life. In my home, is there inclusion? Whether there is a disability or not, how does inclusion occur and what does it look like? Because in many families, people are left out and ostracized. So where there is the disability, sometimes partners separate because the wife or the husband takes it on and leaves the other partner. And that person feels not included and disappears. Sometimes a child, as you showed up, Maureen, is excluded to the point where that child takes themselves out of the world because I'm not enough, I'm not important, I'm not valued. So what I'm listening to in this conversation is the opportunity for me and the opportunity for you to ask yourself, how am I living an inclusive life? Who am I excluding in my way of being, in my practicing, in my living, in my habits? Because sometimes the very things, you know, when Center spoke about the system, I wrote it down. I said, I, as a human being, I am a system. I think, I develop, I change. I, as a human being, am a system. So how is my system operating? And what are my principles, policies, and practices? And how do those principles, policies, and practices impact the world of disabilities in a way that there is inclusion, there is accessibility, and what was the third one? Sustainable practices for development. So all of that is an opportunity for us to create on this talk together. Center, you stepped away, and Christine was asking, Christine, do you want to go back to your question?
Oh, right. So Dr. Earl Brown from Northern Caribbean University, she heads up the Department of Psychology there. And she's asking, how can psychologists help with advocacy and inclusion? What can they do?
And this was a question that was posed to both me and Lorraine, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Lorraine, would you like to start, or would you like for me to start?
I think you can go first, and then because you with the system part of it, and then I'll go second.
Okay. So I just want to give back what I thought I heard in regards to her position. She is a professor at a university in the Caribbean.
Right.
And her department is the School of Psychology.
Yes. So she's the head of the School of Psychology there.
Okay, so a couple of things I'll share from a systemic perspective is that I'm going to talk about the college, and then from the college go into the community, and from the community go into the schools, from the schools go into the family, from the family go into the children. That's because that's a system, right? And so one of the things that I would encourage is for professors to begin to look at their curricula holistically. What is being taught in the classrooms to pre-service and in-service professionals, those that are already in service, those who are already in the field doing the work, coming back for education, and those that are pre-service that are just now entering into the workforce and they're learning this information for the very first time. It needs to be embedded, not in one course. It needs to be embedded in all courses. So inclusion should be a conversation and a body of evidence that is supported in all courses. What we have found is that historically in America, we have thought about inclusion in some places, not all places, as an afterthought. So in other words, we look at all the information, then we go, oh yeah, we should include children with disabilities into this conversation. The way that we're moving right now is that inclusion is not just I used this word the other day, not just a mindset, that's the foundation. It's a heart set and it's a tool set, but we have to be able to help people at all levels of education to begin utilizing that information, that practice. So please, please, please take time as the department chair of psychology to talk with your faculty to make sure that they have developed understanding, paradigms, and information around inclusion, and they themselves have gone through training so that they can deal with whatever barriers, challenges, and supports they need in order to impart this information into the students that they're teaching. That's the first thing that I would share. The other thing, and so that's from a systems education standpoint, we call institutes of higher education. The other thing that I would share is that as we go down from the macro level down into what we call the micro level, the smaller systems, is that when we're talking in community, the school psychologists that are out there, usually they're the ones that are driving the assessments. They're the ones that are driving the evaluations and helping with the delivering the diagnoses or information to families about how their child will be placed or how decisions will be made. That's at the community level. So I would encourage people to write legislation. Legislators, policymakers need to hear from not just parents, but Lorraine, you talked about it, and so did Maureen, that we have to be at the table together. It's not just the voice of the parents that carry the burden. The professionals need to also carry that voice to legislation, to key policymakers to make changes. So I would share that. When they're doing assessments, I want to talk about, I get excited. Let me calm down for a minute because there's so much that I can talk about. I want to talk about assessments for a minute, and that we need to pull back and look at the types and the quality of assessments that we're using to evaluate children. We need to look at naturalistic assessments and value parent-based interviews, that there's value and there's merit in that. And we need to get off the perspective of this is what the parent reports with sarcasm behind the pen and what you write that evaluation. We really need to lean into, if the parent is reporting it, they should know, and we should honor and value what the parent is saying. So I really want to lift up and say those assessment tools that we're using, the parent voice matters. And if the child cannot communicate, allow the parent to be the voice for the child and to honor and see that as having some merit and credibility in assessing the child. The other piece about assessment, naturalistic assessments. It doesn't always have to be performance-based. Can you go on a visit to the family's home? Can you provide a natural learning play-based environment where you can see play and natural skills unfold, opposed to, I'm going to sit you in a room, here are a group of materials, I'm going to ask you to pick up the block. Can you pick up the block? If the child can't pick up the block, I just made an evaluation assessment about your ability, when in actuality, I might be able to pick up a fork. I might be able to do something else that has that same movement, but you've limited my ability to demonstrate what I can do because you've only given me this micro performance in order to do the task. So naturalistic based assessments, I hope this is making sense. I'm trying to be
A lot of, no.
natural.
Keep going.
Yeah, no.
So the assessment piece is going to be really critical. And then the other thing is, we talked about this during the keynote, and you've been referring back to it, Christine. We said, bring a picture of a child, bring a picture of your child. And from the wisdom that has come forward from Sasha and Maureen and Christine, I would say, bring a picture of your whole family and set it down on the table. Put it on the table. And so even if they can't understand why you're doing it, you know why you're doing it, because this is your focal point. Maureen, you said my son may not be able to sit in that space, but a photo of him can.
Yes.
And help people to remember that this is not another number. This is not another case. As a school psychologist, I might have 50 to 60 children on my case, up to 120 assessments that I'm doing. I have to slow down the pace and remember this child, this family at 9 o'clock today that happened to be the Staple Ebanks family. I got to slow down my pace and be present for this family and treat them like they are human beings and not another case and not another number. All these things have to be embedded in how we train, how we coach, and how we mentor school psychologists that are out there doing the work. And then the other piece is we have to look at, and these are my last words, because Christine, you had asked me, I'm gonna have to go in a couple of minutes. I'm gonna leave you with 3 quotes. And this lands, because I talked about the education, I went macro all the way down, right, to what's happening in the school. I wanna leave you with 3 quotes. The first quote is, nothing about us without us. Okay. And because Elaine is nodding her head and Christine finished the quote, that almost felt like scripture for a minute. You finished what the point was, but it is a reminder, do not let other people make decisions about your own children.
Nope.
Do not give them that power. Take back, we talked about reclaiming the story. So I want to leave with that. And then my other 2 quotes is, inclusion is just a noun until we do something about it. And the other thing I'm going to share with you, inclusion is not a privilege, it is a right. Inclusion is not a privilege, it is a fundamental human right. So on that note, that's what I have to part and to give. I'm always honored. My heart is so full because I've had the opportunity to join with incredible women, incredible minds once again. I feel like I've returned home. I said that into text to Christine. Elaine, I can't tell you, I wish I can put into words what my spirit is feeling, but I'm so thankful that I get to share space with you once again.
Thank you.
Sasha, I appreciate seeing you, hearing you, and Christine, you know, this is a lifetime journey. And for all of you that are joining today, I'm honored to have been part of this process, this discussion. Maureen, you have implanted in me new thoughts, new hopes, new synergies and strategies. Lorraine, I love the fact I got another ally in the United States that's doing the deep work. And so I'm gonna go. You could tell I get excited once I get started on these topics, but I'm both honored and humbled. Be well, everyone, stay safe.
Santa, we
you.
love you, we honor you, we bless you, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we are grateful for you. Thank you for the work. Thank you for the support of the Nathan E. Banks Foundation, but also thank you for being a voice on the planet that carries light, sound, and power with honor. Thank you.
Now I need to pause and just take that in. I'm so
Yeah.
supported. Okay.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. And I want to welcome another younger sister friend who, just to acknowledge who we are in this space and all those persons from all across the world who are on this summit tonight. I'm going to check in with Christine and ask her to acknowledge how many countries we had. On Monday, there were 23 nations. But joining us, I want to acknowledge two of our presenters from the summit on Monday and Tuesday. I want to acknowledge Dr. Karen Dunkley, educator extraordinaire and president of the Jamaica Northeast Diaspora USA, and a partner of the Foundation for the Parenting Summit and ongoingly. Dr. Dunkley, welcome to our last day in our summit and to our roundtable talk on this World Disability Day.
Thank you so very much, Elaine Wind. I'm so excited. I'm thrilled just to have this summit, especially on the International Day of Persons with Disabilities. I think that really I am inspired. I'm full. If we were tired, we're now energized. And I know as an educator, let me just emphasize that the goals are not equity, they're not just access or not even inclusion. The goal is justice, and justice for all students, children, and families. So I really want to commend you, Christine Ebanks, and the Nathan Ebanks Foundation for the work you do and for the fight that we must continue to do.
Thank you, Karen. And to bring into the conversation too, our sister friend, member of the Nathan E. Banks Foundation and our presenter on Monday who spoke to us about the importance of network and network, Karen Holness. Welcome to our Roundtable Summit. You need the mask on? You need to unmute for me, please. Can you unmute your microphone? Yes.
Yes, I'm still at work with
That's
customers.
okay.
I gotta keep the mask on.
Yes, okay. So welcome. Welcome. Good to have you. We're in the final half an hour of our conversation today. So Christine, I don't know if you have a comment at this time to direct us into this last half an hour.
Right. So yes, I do. So, Corinne, I'm glad you're here because a parent on Monday, several questions came in, and a parent said, well, one, we need to clear up a conversation I had yesterday, which I misrepresented, about the question where the person asked whether the hairdressers, barber, have a social responsibility to support, persons with disabilities or persons who are, vulnerable. And I had given an answer which you say wasn't quite right. So can you reframe that for me?
Well, we do have a responsibility. Where you went wrong was by saying that it's mandatory by state that this is what we do. If we belong to the beauty, if we are a part of the Professional Beauty Association, they have several platforms. They have Cut It Out, which is for domestic violence, and the Mirror Image, which is for breast cancer awareness. And so that was where I needed to clarify that it's not every hairdresser or barber that participates. You have to be a part of an organization
to do that. And everybody would have noticed that her hair is a different color today. One of the ways that she keep it going. So another parent asked if you could address something about combing the hair of a child with autism, because it's not easy for her to get a haircut for her son, and it takes at least 2 persons to hold him down.
Okay. So which is more important? You don't have to take you don't have to take a child to a barbershop. You can cut the child's hair. You can develop a relationship with a barber. Maybe the barber or a hairdresser can come to your home. It's about looking, again, the whole network, right? You look within your environment and create a network you need. So maybe the child won't be able to go into the business place, but you can make a home visit. So it's us using what we have to create the world that we want. And for a parent with a child that keeps moving and all those things, you're going to have to make it as easy as possible for you. So you would then develop relationships with the different professionals that you may have in your community, and then they will support you.
Can I just say it's one of the things, because Brian has sensory issues, and when the shear gets like closer to here, he goes ballistic.
Correct.
And the relationship with a barber, a woman actually, and when she was migrating, she actually spent time with one of the other barbers who was there, showing how to do Brian's hair. And basically, like, no, if we go to the same barber shop, it's not always the same barber, but it's the same space. And somebody would have watched it, and it's like he would sit in the chair now, because first he wouldn't sit down in the chair. He would not. He would not.
Because now he's comfortable.
But then he would just sort of like let it go, and every time, and then the person, they know. So when it comes, it's not a quick, shh, it's done. You got to have the time, talk with him, bring him into your space, let him feel comfortable with you.
So it's about creating that safe space.
Right, that's it.
Space for him. And then he's now familiar with the space, familiar with the people that were there, the smells, the sounds. You know, if they change it, it may create some problems. If they remodel, it may create a little bit of problems, you know.
It did. By the way, they moved, but I mean, the person was there at the door to greet him. And so that was all welcome, and the receptionist was there, and so that welcoming. So the whole issue of routines and familiarity, really, and so I recommended that barber to other parents like myself.
Nice. And so what it does is you realize the value of your network, right? Because this person is now within your network.
Yeah.
For your child and for other children like him. So
thank you for that. So Maureen, as I said to you recently, I'm waiting to read your book.
Lord, yeah.
But this one is for Lorraine. So many parents have expressed in this stream over the week, have expressed extreme anxiety over what will happen to their child should something happen to them. They believe in case of, sudden death, or anything like that, that they have no one to look after their child. And I'm going to ask you to address that first, Lorraine, but I just want to share something. So we have just moved to the United States 5 months ago, actually. And one of my sister's friend has a child with CP who's a little older than my son. And so she came to meet me and she said to me, "How old is Nathan?" And I said, 16. She said, "You need to get somebody to support you through conveyance. Conveyor care, is that what it's called, Lorraine? Yeah. Where if I don't apply to continue to be the guardian for my son, the state takes it over." And additionally, when you talk, Maureen, about the issue of a bank account, because you are now seen as a legal guardian for your child, then that issue is now a non-issue. So there are opportunities for us to look into other laws elsewhere and to help shape the laws that are emerging. Because as Center said and would say to me, don't you see that there is a wonderful opportunity for you to help create the laws that needs to be in place? And so I'm going to ask you to talk a little bit about that, Maureen, in terms of, from Lorraine. The services that, Lorraine, sorry, in terms of the services that you provide through your organization, how can parents be supported? Is there somewhere that you can send them to go get some information to help them through this?
So one of the things is that when your child is underage, meaning that before 18, you can appoint someone, whether it's through power of attorney, which we normally say that. Power of attorney is very easy to do. You come up with, whether it's a family member, next of kin, someone that you feel trusted, especially when we talk about a person with autism is someone who's familiar, you're trusting, your son or your daughter knows that person, in case, we call that future planning. And future planning can begin immediately. As I mentioned, I have a granddaughter, I have grandchildren, and my daughter, and we encouraged my daughter and her husband to do the future planning, even though the children are young. If something should happen, what should that look like? And so you can appoint someone, as I said, before they reach adult. When your child becomes an adult, even though you're a parent, you are no longer able to make legal decision unless you become a legal guardian.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that a lot of people don't understand. And becoming a legal guardian means you're going to have to go through the process, a legal process, to say your son or your daughter is not able to make decisions, whether it's medical decisions or other decisions on their own. You can have what you call a partial legal guardian. So they're able to make certain decisions, others they're not able to make. And so that's one of the things that you can do through my agency. I can direct you to say, okay, this is what you need to do. You can also have what you call future planning trust funds. Here in the US, there's certain finance, when you come to finances, there's certain amount of money you can't have under the person's name because you receive supports here. So there's certain, you can have what you call a trust fund set up for future planning for the person. So that's something that we can guide you through. And that alleviates a lot of the anxiety, because once you begin to plan for the future, it begins to lower your anxiety.
Yes,
Not knowing what the future holds heightens your anxiety. But if you begin to plan and kind of have anyone with or without a child with disability, my children didn't have a disability, but when I didn't know what the future holds, I had anxiety myself. So as I said, we just say, with or without a disability, plan for your future. But it's harder when you have a child with a disability, because your planning continues, your advocacy continues, it never ends. Your support continues, it never ends. So that's one of the reasons, as I said, as a provider, is having that understanding and being able to step in and providing that.
So Maureen, I see you're leaning forward to say something.
Because
hold on a second.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
Because so these facilities don't exist in Jamaica, and Dr. Bird, correct me, in Nevis and in other Caribbean countries. And I remember for several years, the Nathan Banks Foundation knocked on the door of financial institution to say there is something that is available. It's a product that you can look at that would provide families like mine with an ability to set up some kind of support for our children. Nobody took it on. So, and then the other conversation is, Lorraine, and perhaps we can talk about that being a future conversation for us, maybe a one-day summit or something.
Yes.
If we talk about that future planning.
Yes.
Because as the parents, we're caught up in the moment of the struggle. And I turn around and my son is 16. And all of a sudden, a lot of the skills he should have here, he didn't have, because I was so focused on the everyday care. So I have to raise my eyes now to look at 21. So when I'm talking to the people here, I'm saying, listen, he doesn't have time. We need him to get these skills in place, because I don't want to be doing these things for him at 21, and I need him to become independent. And so it really is about getting parents into the habit and practice of being in the company of events like this and programs, so that they can kind of, as Santa said, raise their eyes and just kind of take a wider bird's eye view of the situation.
I mean, honestly, one of the challenges I know is that it didn't come upon me until it happened, because Brian is a child in my headspace. And go back to the bank account thing and other things. He's an adult. I can't technically. So now we're in one of the things I'm working on now with Alun is sorting through how I set up that Anarchy and I are legal guardians. The only way you can do it in Jamaica now is to use the Mental Health Act and declare him, which of course I have fought, because the concept of saying that my son is da 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 da, and that's the only way I can be his care provider or his legal guardian is something I'm not ready for the next 2 or 3 months to fight. I'm not going to declare my son, as the Jamaican people say, insane, to be able to be his caregiver and provider. But I can't leave it alone. I am 64. Anarchy will have oversight of him. I would probably, this child is as strong as an ox. And he's going to outlive me. There's a question about it almost in my mind, God forbid, right? But none of us are his legal guardians anymore because he's an adult. So if he is ill, and I will have to make a decision about what happens to him, we can't, technically, legally, we can't make that decision. And there seems to be no path at this point in time to figure out how to get there. So it's one of the things I'm embarking on while I'm here, while I'm home for the next 2-3 months, is figuring out how to get to that point and what is required outside of declaring him under the Mental Health Act.
So I've always wondered. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, go ahead, Karen. Go ahead.
I think I've always wondered when they graduate as students. My question always was, what happens to them? What happens to our young persons with disabilities? And how do they cope in the world? And what are the plans or the supports for families after they exit the quote unquote K-12 system or K-17 system? So I think that this might be one area, Christine, in terms of future actions or directions that we should have some advocacy around globally so that we could think about what does that care look like. For example, or what does it look like when the parent or the primary caregivers are indeed gone? Because that's a wondering that many educators do have. And noting, Maureen, you're responding saying that there's some exactly who do not even go to school. And that's why my heart was so full that we had the virtual summit during this time, especially in light of the COVID-19 pandemic, because when I spoke to Christine, we know that this is a group really left behind and not even considered in the conversation of virtual learning. So I think that as we talk about inclusion, I think the speaker before said it's an action word, but we have really deep work to do.
Absolutely. And Christine, we have about 15 minutes to wrap up our session for today and to close off the 4 days of this extraordinary event of our Global Parenting Summit launched by the Nathan E. Banks Foundation. And today, as we wrap up, we're just looking at the issue of World Disability Day, which is the day that, as you said, you prescribed to be included in this process. And UNESCO is challenging all of us to think about courageously what will inclusion look like for us? What are we choosing? Doesn't matter what occurred in the past, what are we choosing now? What does it look like for you, for me, for our families, for our community, and for our nation? As the call says for World Disability Day, what is the vision of inclusion that we can create post-COVID-19 as we seek to create a space where all human beings are included, are supported, have accessibility, and operate in a sustainable, productive way? Christine? Your mic is closed. Your mic is off.
Thanks. I was just kind of looking in on the parents. Debbie Allen, who was with us I think it was yesterday, from Melange Magazine, says that she's glad to have been here because the content, the information has been rich. And, you know, Kimberly, again, talks about the hair care, but I think Corinne has answered that. But this one is just a little bit different because she says, so her husband waits until her son goes to sleep because otherwise the school principal, assisted by the class teacher, cuts his hair. And there are also schools that will tell you that you can't send the child there unless the hair is cut. So there is a lot of wrong focus, you know, about understanding the issues of the children in a way that honors who they are. And so I just want to know, just jump into some giveaways. Guys, we went a little bit over in the panel, but the conversation was so rich. And I just wanted to share, Elaine asked about the number of countries that were represented. I need to tell you that the stream went down in the middle of the stream. I think when I got kicked off, or I hit a button and so on, it went down. But we still had the same number of countries. But what I saw was an increase in the different cities that people were coming from. So like there was Nassau, there was Los Angeles, Sacramento, the Bronx, Palmdale, Inglewood, San Andreas, Orlando, Fort Lauderdale, and that's just in the US alone.
Fabulous.
And I observed also that across the Caribbean region, where we were only seeing like one city, that I was now seeing some of them I had to go look up to see where they were. And so that has been great. I also wanted to just remind our participants of some of the prizes. There's still a free coaching session with Corinne that the person I think has asked the most questions about haircut on her son was already awarded another prize. So she can't get this one, but we will let somebody know who that is. And there's also a free consulting with Erin Mercer that we won't announce on the air, but we're actually going to go back through. My very able volunteers have been collating the questions. So we're going to go back and look to see really where the deepest need is. And then we are going to provide that support to that particular family. Right now, though, Elaine, I'm going to ask us to take a few minutes. South Africa, we're told South Africa is also on the call. Very nice. So what we're going to ask everybody to do right now is to pause, like the page and subscribe. For the number of people I see on the page, I do not see enough likes and subscribe. So can you please do that? And while I just take another minute to just really thank our volunteers, and I have to call them out by name, because as we say, there was a lot of production. I was told by several people that they've never seen an online summit that is so interactive and the production level is world class. So I'm told we need to do a master class in how to do these events. But I want to just call out the volunteers. In production, we have Ricardo from Jamaica managing the production stream. We have Naneka from Jamaica managing the Jamaican team. We have Sonia from Jamaica, Shakira, Janet from Jamaica, Keith from Jamaica, Mitzi from Jamaica, Opal. We have Kenny from Jamaica. We have Henry from Ghana, Liang from Australia. Liang is from China, but she's in Australia. We have Anu from Nigeria, Nora from Egypt. We have Smith from Nigeria, Milou from Hungary. Milou is from India, but living in Hungary, working in Hungary. We have Somnia from India, Marion from Kenya, Michelle from Ireland, Gambi from Kenya, Anis from Bangladesh, Nivedita, right, from India. We have Payal from India, and we have Kingsley from, I think it's Nigeria that he's from. So those have been the primary production team behind supporting the design of the summit, supporting the marketing, the promotion. Oh, how could I not mention Joe? Joe was the one who did. Joe is also from Nigeria, I think. And Joe was the one who designed all of most of the booklets, all the booklets and most of the promotional items for us. This new piece is designed by Ricardo, and I want to tell him thanks. I also want to tell Renee from Jamaica. Renee supported the website design. And then there is Nalini. Nalini is from Trinidad and Tobago, and she supported our promotional center website design. And we also had some persons who supported graphics. And so we just really want to give a big shout out and thanks to all of these volunteers. And you see their flags represented up there, because in addition to supporting the event, they also have been pulling the event into their countries. So that's a part of how so many people from different countries were able to come on. And I really want to thank the United Nations Online Volunteering Corps community for providing us with the opportunity to get these just really talented, top of the line volunteers that one day I hope to have people like them on a team that is paid and that support the work of the foundation. I want to thank all our sponsors. I want to thank all our partners. I want to thank Elaine. Oh my goodness, Elaine has been in the design.
Yes,
for
Elaine,
months.
yay.
and so on. And Elaine supported the process of helping me to streamline the activities to make sure that they were deepening the conversation. And so when I would put the wording one way, she would say, no, we're possibility thinkers. And so she would just really give direction for all of that. Corinne, who is my bouncing board, my connector, who called me to check on me. She said, who checks on the strong woman? And she called and her brain is always going to say, oh, I need you to connect you to this. Corinne connected me to Karen. Thank you so much for that. I want to also say thank you to Karen. And of course, I want to thank you for my family, because Nathan was on Monday evening and he was on the live stream and he sent his hi, and he has been giving up his space so that I am able to do all of this without disturbance. For Maureen, when Maureen talk about the work that she does is really not about Brian. Maureen, if you had come in a little early, you'd have heard Elaine say the same thing about me, that while our children may have started it and put the passion in our hearts, that the work that we're doing is so much larger, bigger. And I remember a great friend once said to me that when the Lord gives you something to do, it is always bigger than you and it always needs more than you. And so I'm very clear about this purpose of everything that we're doing. And so I just want to thank everybody for coming on and for sharing. And over back to you, Elaine.
Right. Well, thank you, my dear. I can only join you now in the Thanksgiving to thank the panel for today specifically. We want to thank Center Green, our inclusion specialist. So inspiring. We want to thank Lorraine Smith, Sasha Hill, Maureen Weber, Dr. Glenville Liebert, and we want to thank Dr. Karen Dunkley and Corinne Holness for stepping in towards the end of our time together today. It has been a really powerful, stimulating, challenging, encouraging, gratifying, prospering conversation. And I am really inspired and want to really challenge all of us now to look at ourselves, because we may think that the government is the policy maker, but history has taught us that we, the people, are the ones who have to liberate ourselves from the mental slavery that we have allowed to overtake us, so that we can inform the policymakers of the policies that are necessary for our liberation and for our growth. So if nothing else comes from this summit, I'm looking forward to each one of us standing in our place as leader and challenging ourselves individually and as families, as communities, and as nations to look at how we can use the platform of a World Disability Day to increase our understanding of the power and the necessity of inclusion, of accessibility, and of sustainable processes, so that humanity can really evolve into being the true systems that we are designed to be. Operationally right now, we may be operating at a less than optimum level, as we have seen in so many arenas. So we have the opportunity to claim our dignity and our worth. So as Center challenged us, We are talking about nothing about us without us, because each one of us is paramount. We are saying inclusion is not a word, it is an action. And so we challenge each of us now to ask, how am I dealing with inclusion in my daily living, whether I am associated with a disability or not? Just as a human being, how am I practicing the art of inclusion in my own life? I think that is such a powerful question to live from. The thing, because inclusion is not a privilege, as Senta said, as she challenged us. It is a natural human right. And we were reminded that the question really has to do with justice for all. Because if we are not coming from building a just society, then inclusion does not become important or a necessity. So I'm saying wherever we stand on this summit, whether we want to see ourselves as just parents, and there's no such thing, as just human beings, and there is no such thing. The truth is that we all have access to power. Are we claiming that power? Are we using that power? Are we standing in our leadership as powerful human beings on this planet at an opportune time for shifting the world from a place of opportunism and classism and racism and exclusion into a world of beauty, light, and love, where inclusion and all the abilities survive and thrive? That's the opportunity that this summit stands on. And I'm just overwhelmed, excited, and really inspired to have been allowed to participate in this way, and look forward to all of us really doing what we said we would. And what's that? Liking the NEF page. No, Maureen is saying she can't see how to do that. So Christine, can you tell us how to do that?
Don't worry, Annika will tell me. Don't worry, I want to work, but Annika will tell me.
Okay. All right. So we want to like, there's a Facebook page, there's an Instagram.
And
we want you to
subscribe.
subscribe. And we want you to help us to increase the platform and reach of the Nathan E. Banks Foundation through that activity. If there's nothing else you do, remember, we are at the end of the 5 days prescribed for Giving Tuesday. So in whatever way you can make a contribution, I come back. Where's my book, Christine? Oh, here it is. Where is yours, Christine? Simple Ways. The book is a resource tool. It's profoundly important. There are 4 books. The stories about Nathan. This one is How to Cope Parenting a Child. You heard Dr. Buchholz said she used the resource of this book to create a course for medical doctors at the University of the West Indies in Jamaica on how to relate and deal better with their disabled parents. So if that kind of data is in this, you can imagine what a parent can find. Last 2 minutes, it's the last minute. I would want to just open my arms and just pull everybody into a big hug up. Just hug up yourself, hug up your family, hug up each other, hug up the world, because the world needs lots of hugs right now, right? And not allow ourselves to be separated and to be pulled asunder by the fears and threats of whatever this thing is that they call COVID-19. Because in this world, you and I are greater. And this matter of disability, there is no such thing. We only know ability, because that's what human beings bring to the table. So let us live, let us love, let us inspire, and let us just perform to the best of our abilities. Right,
Amen.
Christine?
Amen.
God bless us all.
And as we go out on this note, Debbie Austin again from Melange Magazine says, thank you, Christine. I'm impressed, touched, and further inspired by the depth of this summit. And so it takes heart and it comes from that place of heart. It takes direction, and everybody who know me know I'm a woman of faith, and everything happens in prayer. But it takes intentionality and it takes commitment. And I stand here telling you that my commitment would not happen in myself alone. So I'm really thankful for my village and my journey companion. And I want to say to you guys that almost, well, 70% of those who were speakers or involved in any way this week are part of the village that I grew as a result of my gift, which is Nathan. So my question to you is, where is
What
your
are you
village
growing?
and what are
What
you
are you
growing?
growing?
Yeah, yeah.
Lovely. God bless us all. Have a wonderful evening, everybody.
Thank you.
And
Bye.
practice inclusion. Practice inclusion.
Yay.
Thank you. Thank